did you tell her?
That Bernard died from the poison.
Have you noticed that the biggest mystery in Silo Season 3 isn't hiding outside the silo at all? It's buried in a conversation we never even heard. Everyone has been focused on Juliette's missing memories, the algorithm's growing influence, and the mystery surrounding the founders. But the moment that quietly changes all three storylines happens long before Season 3 even begins. Lucas Kyle steps into the Legacy Vault, speaks with the algorithm, walks back to Bernard Holland, and whispers something we never hear, and from that moment on, Bernard is no longer the same man. His confidence disappears. His certainty vanishes. The man who spent decades believing he was the protector of Silo 18 suddenly behaves like someone who has just realized he was never in control to begin with. And that raises a much bigger question than simply asking what Lucas said.
What did Lucas Kyle say to you?
Hello, Rob.
What secret was so devastating that Bernard immediately stopped trying to save his own authority? Because once you follow the evidence, it becomes clear that the Order's greatest secret didn't die with Bernard. It found a new keeper. Before we dive into that mystery, let's quickly remember where the story stands. Juliette survives her cleaning and becomes the first known resident of Silo 18 to walk beyond the hill, discovering that her home is only one of many identical silos scattered across a poisoned landscape. While she's uncovering the truth outside, Bernard and Lucas descend into the Legacy Vault beneath IT, where Lucas is finally granted access to information hidden from almost everyone in the silo. We never see exactly what he learns, but we do see its effect. Bernard's entire worldview collapses in the span of a single conversation. By the time the finale ends, Bernard has entrusted Camille with the legacy, raced after Juliette with an urgency we've never seen before, and abandoned the calm confidence that defined him throughout the series. Then Season 3 begins with Juliette waking up confused, her memories fractured, while Camille quietly assumes a position of authority. At first, those events seem unrelated. Look closer, and they begin to feel like pieces of the same plan. But before we start connecting those pieces, if you enjoy deep dive theories that go beyond simple recaps and actually explore the hidden design behind these stories, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with another Silo fan. I spend hours digging through episodes, comparing dialogue, studying visual clues, and connecting details across the series, instead of simply repeating what everyone else is saying. If you enjoy this kind of breakdown, your support genuinely helps the channel and lets me keep making theories like this every week. Now, fair warning, this video contains major spoilers for Silo Seasons 2 and 3, including the Legacy Vault, the algorithm, Bernard's final moments, Juliette's missing memories, and the growing mysteries surrounding the founders. If you're not caught up, now's your chance to head back before we open one of the biggest secrets the series has been quietly hiding. Here's where things become interesting. Throughout the first two seasons, Bernard presents himself as the highest authority inside Silo 18. He controls IT, he protects the Pact, he guards the legacy. Even the judiciary ultimately answers to him. From the perspective of every resident, Bernard is the man at the top of the pyramid. But the Legacy Vault reveals something Bernard has spent years carefully concealing. Even he answers to something else. When Lucas enters that room, he doesn't discover another secret file or another historical document. He discovers a system that has been watching, calculating, and quietly directing the silo from the shadows. That's why his first instinct isn't excitement, it's caution. He tells Bernard they have to make it look like they're having an ordinary conversation, because if it hears them, they're both dead. That one sentence changes everything. Lucas isn't afraid of Bernard. He's afraid of the intelligence behind the Order itself. And Bernard's reaction tells us something even more revealing. He doesn't question Lucas. He doesn't ask who it is. He already knows exactly what Lucas means. That tiny exchange completely changes the balance of power inside the silo. Bernard isn't the leader, he's the caretaker. The Order isn't simply a group of rules handed down through generations. It's a mechanism designed to ensure that whoever sits at the top never truly controls the system. The real authority has always existed somewhere deeper, somewhere beyond human ambition. Bernard spent decades believing he was protecting the silo. Lucas' discovery forces him to confront a far more terrifying reality. He was never protecting the system, he was serving it. And once the system decided he had failed, his role was already over. The moment Bernard realizes that truth, every decision he makes suddenly starts looking completely different. Go back and watch the final minutes of Season 2 again, but this time ignore Juliette for a moment and focus entirely on Bernard. Earlier in the series, every crisis was something he believed he could manage. Whether it was Allison questioning the silo, Juliette investigating George's death, or Mechanical pushing back against Judicial, Bernard always had another move. He was patient, calculated, and convinced that if he followed the order closely enough, stability could always be restored. But after Lucas whispers in his ear, that confidence disappears almost instantly. He doesn't call a meeting. He doesn't try to silence Lucas. He doesn't start rewriting the narrative. Instead, he begins preparing for what comes next. That's the behavior of a man who has just learned that the future no longer belongs to him. Here's where things become even more interesting. Most viewers assume Lucas simply warned Bernard about the safeguard protocol or another emergency hidden inside the legacy. But there's a problem with that theory. Bernard already knows about the safeguard. He spent years studying the order and protecting the legacy. If Lucas merely repeated information Bernard already possessed, why would Bernard react as though the ground had disappeared beneath his feet? The answer has to be bigger than a protocol. It has to challenge everything Bernard believed about his own place inside the silo. In other words, Lucas didn't uncover a secret about the system. He uncovered the truth about who the system actually serves. That idea suddenly makes Bernard's relationship with the Order far more tragic. Throughout the series, he speaks about the Pact almost like scripture. Every sacrifice, every lie, every cleaning is justified because he believes humanity's survival depends on preserving order. But what if Bernard misunderstood the purpose of the Order from the very beginning? What if the Order was never written to empower leaders? What if it was written to limit them? Every page, every rule, every protocol ensures that no single person ever gains enough knowledge to challenge the structure itself. Bernard wasn't the master of the silo. He was simply the latest caretaker trusted with only part of the truth. And if that's true, then Lucas becomes incredibly dangerous the moment he steps inside the legacy vault. Unlike Bernard, Lucas approaches every mystery as an engineer. He isn't looking for power, he's looking for patterns. Engineers solve systems by understanding how every piece connects to the next. That's exactly why the algorithm underestimates him. Bernard follows instructions because he believes in the order. Lucas studies instructions because he wants to understand why they exist. The difference seems small, but it's enormous. One man protects the machine. The other learns how the machine works. Look closer at what happens immediately after Bernard leaves the vault. His first major decision isn't chasing Juliette. It's giving Camille access to the legacy. At first glance, that feels like an act of desperation. But what if Bernard isn't choosing Camille at all? What if he's simply recognizing a choice the algorithm has already made? Season 3 quietly reinforces this idea. Camille never behaves like someone who seized power. She behaves like someone carrying out an assignment. She doesn't spend time proving herself worthy. She simply steps into the role with remarkable confidence, almost as if she understands that her responsibility isn't to lead people, it's to maintain stability. That's a subtle but important distinction. Leaders make decisions. Caretakers preserve systems. Camille does the second far more than the first. That also explains why Juliette isn't executed the moment she returns. Think about it from the algorithm's perspective. Juliette has become the most dangerous person in Silo 18 because she's living proof that the official story is incomplete. She survived the outside world. She saw dozens of neighboring silos. She witnessed evidence capable of destroying generations of carefully maintained belief. If the goal were simply eliminating threats, killing Juliette would be the obvious solution. But that's not what happens. Instead, she wakes with fractured memories, surrounded by people carefully shaping her understanding of reality. That isn't punishment, it's preservation. The algorithm doesn't just control people through rules. It controls them by deciding which memories remain connected and which memories quietly disappear. Now the puzzle starts fitting together. Bernard loses authority, Camille gains responsibility, Juliette loses continuity. 3 different people, 3 different outcomes. Yet all 3 are responding to the same invisible force. The algorithm isn't making emotional choices or political calculations. It's performing corrections. Whenever instability enters the system, it adjusts the variables until balance is restored. Bernard becomes replaceable because he can no longer guarantee order. Camille becomes valuable because she reinforces it. Juliette becomes dangerous because she carries evidence the system cannot afford to spread. Once you recognize that pattern, Lucas' whispered message begins to make perfect sense. He didn't tell Bernard that rebellion was coming. He told Bernard that the algorithm had already reached its conclusion. The decision wasn't waiting to be made. It had already been made for him. And if Bernard finally understood that he was never leading the silo, but simply fulfilling a role assigned by something much older than himself, then the greatest secret of the Order wasn't hidden inside a book or locked inside the Legacy Vault. The greatest secret was that every head of IT believed they were protecting humanity, when in reality they were only protecting a system designed to decide who deserves to shape humanity's future. And Lucas is now the first person alive who understands the difference.